I'm Anthony. I founded Legatics. I used to be a project finance lawyer at Clifford Chance in London. So we were doing the financing documents, the construction documents for power stations, infrastructure projects, and other deals. And as a junior lawyer on some of those deals, I was project managing those transactions. It fell to me to do that. And the way that those deals were project managed, which wasn't just us, it was the whole industry, and there's still a huge amount of this about, was using enormous tables in Microsoft Word. These were given to the client as an update as to where their transaction was at any given moment. The client never read them. They'd have to sort of sort through them line by line. We'd have these calls that would go for hours and hours and hours just to find out where the transaction was at. And we'd be sitting there and going like, line item number sort of 203. I think I sent this to Steve last week and he hasn't responded yet. Line item 204. This is like the security document. What's happened to this one? And it not only crushed my soul, there was never the medal at the end of those calls that I thought there was going to be. But it also slowed down the transaction. We were looking to deploy huge amounts of funds for clients to get these projects built in the world. And the transactions were running slow. The lawyers were being inefficient. The clients wanted a better result. The front door of our law firm was essentially a table in Microsoft Word. That was what the law firm looked like in a digital space. And I thought there'd be a better way to run legal transactions, a better way to deliver a client result that's transparent, where they can see the value that the lawyers are providing on their deal, where the deal can be finished faster, where their closing sets can be delivered very quickly after the transaction. And Legatics was born. So Legatics is a legal transaction management platform that's essentially a place to project manage your legal transactions centrally online. All different parties can log into the transaction, including clients. And they can see where their transaction is at any given moment. We play an online game of hot potato, so anyone who needs to action something on the transaction can be seen live. I'll show you in a second. And we cut out that downtime between actions, and we get deals done faster for clients. It's helping many of our clients win new business and also become more profitable, delivering deals, particularly where there's fee pressure, to budget, not spending time on tasks that are quite often written off on bills. We're used by a huge amount of the AmLaw and the sort of chambers and partners, top firms around the world, as well as mid-sized firms. Example clients, particularly big in the US, might be Sherman, BCLP, Hogan Lovells, but also having started in London, we've got clients like Allen and Overy, Dentons, who operate on a global basis as well. And we're spending a lot more time in the US. We're talking to a lot of firms that are kind of big in a state or in 4 states. We're coming to Nashville, Atlanta, Charlotte, Jacksonville, Miami, Chicago later in the year. And I look forward to meeting lots of people on that trip. And if anyone is in any of those locations, feel free to get in touch and we'd love to say hello. We've got about 55 employees now, all working on this problem of how do we run a better legal transaction. And I'll give you a tour now of what that looks like in our software. So this is what you see when you come into Legatics. There's a screen before this actually where you get a list of all of your transactions, all of your matters that are happening at any given point. Though in the types of transactions I was working on, the CP, the conditions precedent process in those kinds of transactions was huge. You can run any number of processes that are traditionally done in Microsoft Word in Legatics. This is perhaps an example of a real estate transaction. Real estate transactions are becoming really popular on Legatics, particularly in the US. I think the reason is that they're very process driven, they're very document heavy, and that tracking piece, tracking that efficiently is really, really important on those types of transactions. But your transaction on Legatics can be comprised of lots of different modules. You can pick and choose the ones that you want to use to create the particular transaction that suits your deal. So you could have an IPO deliverables tracker. You could have property trackers for different types of for different properties on a real estate transaction. You could have a documents list on an M&A transaction, or conditions precedent, conditions subsequent tracker on a financing transaction. The options are endless there. So this is an example of a real estate transaction. Here we've got a property tracker. We might be tracking early information about a collection of properties. We can assign different statuses and tasks to particular people on the deal. We might be running a diligence process. This is often a huge amount of coordination going backwards and forwards on different questions. And you can see here we're showing exactly in a transparent way exactly who needs to do what next on the transaction. And I'm logged in. My firm for today is Pearson Spector, and I'm being given a really clear call to action to show me what I can do next to drive the transaction forwards, to get the deal done, and to maintain momentum on the transaction. Having gone around lots of the world's law firms, I am continually impressed by the real estate that law firms have. They have some of the fanciest client meeting rooms, but when it comes to what that law firm looks like online, I think there's a huge amount that they can do to improve their front door, to improve the front door of the matter. And giving this view to clients can be very popular, and create a client stickiness that I think our customers really value as well. So if I go into the due diligence tracker, you can see, or the diligence tracker on this real estate transaction, you can see that we've maintained a similar form to a table in Microsoft Word. We know what lawyers expect. We know that behavior change is a huge part of getting technology successfully adopted. We invest much more in our customer success team that provides help to firms getting started, rolling out the technology than we do in our sales team. And that's a really, really important part of what we do as well. We have a process here. We have maybe a set of inquiries from a purchaser. We've got sellers who can give replies. This whole structure is flexible, so we can create different column structures that suit different types of trackers. And we've got statuses that we've assigned to different people, and we're using that to basically monitor our transaction. We can add comments. We can have access control on columns, so we can have internal comments, maybe things that are just happening, conversations within our law firm, perhaps conversations with our law firm and our client, and then conversations that are happening between all parties can all be managed separately in these trackers. We have access control on different line items, so you can say who can see certain line items. We have access control on the lists, so maybe in an M&A context, you could have, I don't know, even a bid financing where parties can't see each other, where, sorry, a bid process where parties can't see each other, where some people make it from the sort of first initial information stage to a later kind of negotiation stage. We can have documents lists, where we can track subsequent versions of documents getting produced. We can track the drafting status of those documents. We can automate actions. So perhaps if we upload a new document to the platform, we can have statuses that automatically update to being reviewed by certain parties. We can run approvals processes where parties sign off on documents. And we can also get documents signed, and we help lawyers manage the signing process on the platform in itself. So when you particularly have transactions that have lots of documents to get signed, we can mark documents for signing. And in the signing view, we can use a kind of wet ink signing process. We can generate signature packs, which we could circulate in a kind of very traditional way, or increasingly popular is getting documents signed on DocuSign, and we can basically push these documents to DocuSign. DocuSign, we find, isn't enough in itself. It's a useful way of getting a kind of individual document signed, but it doesn't help lawyers run the process of collecting lots and lots of signatures, and all of the statuses as people start to sign those documents come back into the platform, and we've got a single view, a control center where we can see which documents have been signed. Those then sync back into the list view when we're ready to pull them back in. You could even have a little escrow process if you want before you pull them back in. And then with a single click, because we've got a structured version of the transaction, we can create a closing set, so you're not stuck there trying to find the latest version of documents late into the night, renaming, renumbering things, hyperlinking things. In a single click, we can go and create a closing set and distribute that or different versions of that to clients very quickly after the transaction finishes as well. We know that lawyers love their tables in Microsoft Word, so you can download this as a table in Microsoft Word or a PDF. That's it's a funny feature because I know a partner at a law firm who says that he never wants anybody to click that button, because if anyone clicks that button, then they're not using the platform properly and they're not doing things in an efficient way. But I also know people who just really want to print out their checklist, and they look at this and they say, yes, we've got our data back in the form that we're used to seeing it in, and it kind of proves that this is the same stuff here, that we're not losing anything by running it on the platform, and it can be a really important tool in kind of achieving behavior change in a law firm to get them to adopt the software. We can view the matter as if we're another party on the transaction to get confidence in the way we've set it up in the access control. And we also know that onboarding is huge for lawyers as well. So there's different ways to get started with a list. We know that quite often the best source of a checklist or a documents list or a steps plan is the last deal you did. So you might have something lying around that is a completion checklist type piece. We provide the ability for you to import data from legal text. You can paste like a schedule in and very quickly use our kind of pattern recognition tool to interpret like what's a substantive document to be collected there, and start your process that way. Or if you do have a table from a previous deal, you can drop that into the software. And the software will automatically detect like what's a heading. You get opportunities to edit things, and you can very quickly pull any existing Microsoft Word table into the software and then run your process from there. You can also create lists from templates. So as a firm, you can manage your own set of templates. So you can organize that by practice area. You can even have specific templates for clients if you've got a client that likes to run a certain process the same way again and again, perhaps at the start of their transaction. And then Legatics also, we provide 41 example templates to give you inspiration as to things you could do within the platform to kind of inspire lawyers as to things they could build within Legatics. We know that if you give lawyers a blank page that they don't necessarily know how to quite what to do with that, but if you say, look, you're a real estate lawyer, here's your diligence tracker, it's got an example here that you can look at straight away and think, that's how I work, that's me, that talks to me. We know that you get really good adoption that way as well. We've got a really active product development roadmap. You can see it from within the software. You can submit ideas from within the software. You can see what we've got planned, what we've released within the platform, and staying close to lawyers, staying close to our users and what they want from the platform is really, really important to us. So I'll be really, this is a really brief overview. We've got a number of other features that I won't go into today, but that's a taste of Legatics. And if anyone has any questions now, do feel free to ask away.
Around templates, really, I think that's something that folks are always asking about. What kind of capabilities does Legatics have around kind of people's ability to create templates?
Sometimes we find that there are people within law firms who have responsibility for setting the way that deals are done, and sometimes we just find there are power users who really want to just run with the platform and kind of create templates for their department to use. So basically, everything you can do in a list can be created in a template. So if you did a deal, you really enjoyed what you created, you thought this was actually a really good way to run a certain process, you can turn a list with all the column structure, all the content within it. You can choose, do you want to have a set of documents? You might want to keep the framework, but maybe you have different documents every time or something like that. You can choose which elements of the list you want to keep in your framework. And then you can basically deploy that across your organization. So yeah. So
Excellent. I
basically,
love
pretty much
that.
everything you can do in a list, you can bring into a template.
I'm sure the knowledge people are nuts about that. I'm sure that's very popular. Excellent. And then the other thing that I thought worth asking, I know real estate's super huge, and it's funny, when I was at my last firm, that was one of the main problems I was trying to solve with our transactions, was a real estate practice. What other areas are you seeing like a really great adoption of Legatics practice areas?
So we've seen a lot in finance, transactions, like asset finance, where you've got lots of documents, maybe one whole set of documents per asset. You could have an individual module per asset. You can take a module, you can duplicate that out. So if you are financing 30 aircraft or something like that, you can produce an aircraft piece and you can duplicate that out. You can do in the same way as you might do for a property, like rolling stock, trains, trucks, those sorts of things can be document heavy, and we're seeing a lot of success in. We're also seeing a lot of usage on corporate restructurings, where you've got lots of teams that need to coordinate on things, bits that need to be sent to different departments for different types of teams. You know, there's a tax bit that's got to be looked at by the tax people. There's a bit in another state that's got to be looked at by some people who are local there. So you can kind of assign that all out and manage it. So a lot of corporate transactions. There are a lot of M&A transactions happening, so we see a decent amount of usage in that field as well. We haven't been used a lot in litigation. I think that's something that's an interesting space for us, but I feel like there's been a lot of legal technology for litigation for a long time, and our transactional colleagues have sometimes been a little bit more overlooked, and this is their era now.